welcome to the final two chapters within the book of Genesis. Today we are working through chapters 49 and 50 today. So I will get started. Remember, there's links under this video, so if you want the exact information, you can check it out there. So let's get started with Genesis 49. So in this chapter, Jacob it's his last few days before he dies, and he calls all of his sons to gather around him because he is going to then convey the messages that he's been given by God to each one of them. Now this could be a blessing or it could be a curse, and each are about to find out which one that is. So as the brothers all gather round, Jacob begins with Reuben, who is the firstborn, and he would naturally be given the birthright. But as he basically slept with Joseph's concubine, which was Bilhah, then his blessing has been turned into a curse. So his life will not be blessed, sadly. Then we move on to Simone and Levi. Again, these two were at the heart of the killings in the town where their sister Dinah was raped, and they just went way too far, and they ended up, killing in such a horrific way back in those previous chapters. So because of their anger, it was so fierce that God is going to scatter them throughout the land. That is their curse for them. Now Judah, he was also among all of that, but he has been given a blessing because, remember, back in previous chapters, he was going to stand in for Benjamin, who was going to be kept captive by Joseph when he was playing that prank on them. And he decided, because he had so much concern more for Jacob than himself, he was willing to put himself in to Benjamin's position so that Benjamin could go home and, he knew his father would then be at peace. At least he'd have one of his sons. So because of those change of events, he has been blessed. And Jacob says to Judah, "Your brothers will praise you and your children, and you will defeat your enemies. From your tribe will arise one who will be the lion of the tribe." So one person is going to be pretty strong, and he is going to have people bow down to him, and they will obey him. And people will come to him and they will wash his garments, and he will save and rule the nations. So he is going to be pretty powerful. Let's watch out for that one in the Judah genealogy. So the next son, Zebulun. "You," he says, "will be blessed. You will live by the Mediterranean Sea and the Sea of Galilee." So he is going to reside there. And what will become of that is something in the sea merchant world, I would have thought. That's where he's going to reside. Ishka. Now Ishka, you sadly are cursed, because you're strong, but you're very lazy. And because he's lazy, your family will become slaves, and other people will make you work for them, and they won't pay you for your work. It doesn't sound great, does it? That's what's going to become of him. Next we move on to Dan. Dan will be blessed, and you will provide justice for your people. You will be like a snake by the roadside that bites the horse's heels, so your enemies will fail. So he's going to be obviously a man like the police, coming and taking charge and making sure, justice is served. That's Dan's role. Gad, you'll be blessed also, and an army will rise up and overpower you, but in the end you will overcome. You will be victorious. So that is Gad. Asher now. Asher, you will also be blessed. Asher will work with food, and in doing so his food will become so famous that he will end up preparing food for the royal dignities. So that's where he's going to end up. Naphtali, you are also blessed. You will be like a deer. You'll be free in the woods, and his family are going to, be very beautiful. So he's going to have lots of beautiful children and live very free in nature. That's Naphtali. Now, Joseph, we move on to Joseph. Joseph, you will be blessed. Of course, we would have known that. And your tribe will be like a fruitful vine that is near a well and will go over a wall. But you will be attacked by evil men. So he's always seeming to have somebody coming at him. But the men, you will remain steadfast because you've got God on your side, and this blessing will allow your tribe to multiply with blessings from the sky and the earth. Your blessings will be greater from all the blessings from all the ancient hills, that the blessings all come to Joseph, the prince among his brothers. So he is like that golden light. He's the firstborn from Rachel, Jacob's wife that he loved the most, and he is just shining bright like a beacon of light. Next, we move on to Benjamin, the youngest of Rachel's sons. You will be blessed. You will be like a wolf, he says, who kills his prey and crushes his enemies. So he's going to be very strong and obviously have a good troop of people around him too. And that is everyone. That's everyone been given their bless and their curse. I don't know how they must feel all around there, especially, seeing others that have been blessed. Joseph's been blessed the most. The others have all got like something to look forward to. And those that are cursed, you reap as what you sow, right? So it's like it's giving us this understanding. And so after they've all been given what Jacob has been given through God to each brother, then he gives them the directions he wants for them to bury him, that he wants to be buried in the cave in Canaan, where Abraham was buried, where Isaac, Sarah, Rebecca and Leah are also buried too. That is where he wants to be buried. And all the sons agree that that is what they will do for their father. That is his last wishes. And then he says to them, I bid you all goodbye, and said he'll be back again in a few years. He'll see them back again in a few years. So that's kind of like, because then he passes away. So maybe he's going to come in like a light or a premonition or something in their minds, because he is obviously, his flesh is no more. And so that ends our chapter 49. We now move on to chapter 50. And this is where we begin with the burial of Jacob. He's obviously passed away. And so Joseph has his father embalmed, which is basically, he has his father preserved so that, our decaying bodies, they eventually deteriorate quite quickly. So you have them embalmed. It preserves them for a longer period of time. So he has his father embalmed, and the Egyptians all weep over him for 70 days. So Joseph was obviously an influential person within Egypt. Even though he's not from there originally, he's obviously had a real impact on the Egyptians. And Joseph goes to Pharaoh and he tells him that, my father wants, his wishes were to be buried in Canaan. Please will you allow me to take his body there and bury him in that place? And Pharaoh says, yes, of course. Take your father and bury him. And so Joseph takes his father, he goes with all his brothers, he takes a lot of Egyptians too, all go with him to mourn and to bury him in the cave in which he wished. And so they take him there, and Joseph mourns for 7 days while he's there. There's this mourning and ceremony, and then they bury him in the cave of Canaan. Then they all return to Egypt. So after all these years, Joseph's brothers are still fearful that he's going to want revenge on them. And I think this is because Jacob was saying, that he is the blessed one, that God is always with him. So they're really sort of want his forgiveness, and they go to him for that. And Joseph weeps by this request. He weeps, but he does forgive them, and he says, look, you did mean to harm me. Yes, you did. But God worked through me, and it all worked out for the best, because I was able to come to Egypt. I created this, abundance, and I was able then to take care of my father and you as a whole. So it's all worked out good in the end. So he's forgiven them. We move past that, and we get to a period of time where Joseph is now 110 years old, and he proclaims that God will bring his brothers to the promised land. That's what he says to them. And then he passes away at age 110 and was buried in a coffin in Egypt. So he didn't go to the Canaan place, where he chose to be buried there, I believe. Doesn't say that he requested anything, so he's chosen to stay in Egypt. So that completes the book of Genesis. And just to give a quick overview of where we've come throughout this period, I mean, we started off where we learned about creation, God creating each day, and on each day, he was creating light and day and the creatures, and then man. So we had Adam and Eve, and then the tree of knowledge came, and we took from that tree of knowledge, and that is when it all just spiraled down. And then God had a mission, like get them out of the Garden of Eden. Then we started to multiply, and there was creation, obviously, and then Eve has two sons, Cain and Abel, and this is when this starts to, like, these corrupt things starts, where a brother is killed out of jealousy. It's the first sort of sibling rivalry. Then we see how the spirit and flesh is divided, and it's going on this journey, and God decides, I need to slay all of this. So Noah comes into play, builds an ark. We get to sort of create everything again, and then there's an oath made that God will not destroy man to that degree again. Okay, so the promise is made between Noah and God. So we have that, but then it's like the descent comes again, and we have this Babylon is created, and this where they create this tower, and they're trying to be higher than God themselves. So then we have like just the same kind of scenario coming about, and we have different languages created. So God's trying to sort of create some diffusion to diffuse these situations, and he asks Abraham, remember, to leave this area to go towards Canaan, where he tells him to go. And then we have a journey with Abraham. Then he has a son, Isaac. Then we have the journey with Isaac. Then we have Isaac having the son of Jacob and Esau, which is similar to Cain and Abel. There's rivalry, but there's no killing in that one. Jacob is the one that isn't great at the start. There's a lot where he takes his brother's birthright, but then he meets with God, and he sees God in his life, and all is forgiven, and then he lives a much more righteous life. Then he has a son who is Joseph, and obviously we've been through the story with Joseph and all of the situations that he has gone through within that family of Jacob. So it's been a real twist and turn of events. So yeah, it's covered a lot. It really has. The book of Genesis, there's so much in it, from creation to how man has turned from spirit into flesh, and how that is sort of this combat within us, how it plays out in our different scenarios. And I think we're learning a lot through our interaction with others. It's like that tree of knowledge is something that we have to work in the mind to work out to come back to spirit. That's how I am seeing this book. It's like we have a lesson. Earth is our lesson now. We have a mind that we have knowledge within, and we need to work with that knowledge to become one with the spirit, so that we can become holy again. Because when we're not working through spirit, when we lose track on every story that we've seen so far, when they're not blessed with God, they've gone off into their own little sort of side path, and things have just turned into problems. Look at the brothers when they thought something was wrong. They thought with their mind, thought knowledge, thought it was wrong, got angry, got in touch with their feelings, and the feelings are interlinked with the knowledge, which makes them then react in this way that is more savage. I mean, they end up killing people over it. And so it's like, what's going on? Whereas if you stay on that righteous path like Joseph did, he's continuously stayed, whatever has been thrown at him, he was thrown into the Egyptians as a slave and he made the best of it. And so much so that he was recognized for doing the right thing and promoted. And even when he was hit again by, his master's wife, thrown into prison for her accusing him of rape, thrown into prison, he then becomes the warden of the prison and is works alongside the warden to the point where he's given so many roles, and then he's moved up eventually by, just following that spirit within him, which is a higher power, which is God, which is within each and every one of us. We have to learn from that which resides within us. It's like there is a kind of, I don't know how to explain it really. It's kind of that, like, when you play an instrument, when you play it right, it sort of has those beautiful sounds come out. But when you play it wrong, it's all ding. And it's kind of like if you feel into your world, there's like the mind sets off these feelings that can cause you to act in irrational ways. But when you are aligned with God, there is a natural flowing way that nothing seems to bother you externally, because internally you are just singing from the same hymn sheet. So yes, there is a lot to learn, and that's just one book. And so I'm looking forward to getting into the book of Exodus and moving on with this journey with the King James Bible. Thank you for being here, and I'll be back again tomorrow with the next beginning chapter. So thanks for being here, and I will see you again soon. Take care now. Bye.